Welcome back to Noob Repair. This is the third and final part of episode 11. Today we're going to be talking about an additional option that you have if you don't want to hardware region modify your shell of your Genesis system. We're trying to do things the easy way, and so we've got a couple additional options for you if you don't even want to cut into your system at all.
Well, more like one additional option. You could have looked these up online yourself technically, but we're telling you here so that you're aware, just because maybe you clicked on this wondering, wow, how can I play an import game on my Genesis? It comes down to the Game Genie. In Europe it was called the Pro Action Replay or the Action Replay or something like that. It's the same idea, but the codes are slightly simpler, slightly different. The way the Game Genie works is you get your game cartridge. I suppose I can zoom up. I think everybody knows how these work at this point.
We're going to use a copy of Ball Jacks
for the initial example. And you just plug it in and then you stick it into your Genesis. The Game Genie is shaped exactly the same as a regular Sega Genesis card.
So you don't have to worry about cutting anything.
And there's a switch on the side of the Game Genie. If you turn it down, that's off, and the Game Genie will just act as a pass-through adapter.
Right.
So, wait, let's do the thing that you shouldn't do with every video game. Stick it into the Genesis right here. Turn it on.
Now that's with the pass-through on or
off.
Off.
Well,
okay.
Oh, look at that! It still comes on. So,
interesting.
I forgot because it's been a long time since I used the Game Genie. You enter the codes no matter what. The switch is just to enable or disable them. So if you don't put anything in, just hit start. It'll launch the game, and it just load like normal, like as if it was.
Yep. This game works in the system just region free pretty much. So other than the physical hardware mod, you can play the game and you don't have to worry about it.
And we'll show you without.
This is without the Game Genie.
Mind you, we might cut his Genesis so that the cartridge fits, and you'll see that it boots up just fine.
Yep.
So, to further explain some of the intricacies of this, let's say you have a Japanese game that has region locking in the code of the game. So if this is the Japanese version of Sonic Spinball.
It's just one example of many games that do have this. There's probably about, what, 200 games or so?
Yeah, like we were saying. We can put a link in the description of the video that has a list of the games that you might run into problems with, and also links to a couple of the resources that we're going to show you here. So, like we said, this one runs into a problem if you're not playing it on a Japanese Mega Drive.
So this is just plugging into the system. Normally it says developed for use only with NTSC Mega Drive systems.
So, one of the benefits of the Game Genie is that you can use codes to modify some of the information that gets transmitted between the Game Genie and the Genesis. So, I've plugged it in with the Game Genie now, and I might need to blow on it. We gotta clean our cartridges. And I don't know if you can see that far away on the video, but there's a green light on the Game Genie.
Yep.
Is it behind the TV? I can't tell. That green light only comes on when you have the switch up, so that's with codes enabled.
Right.
I'm going to enter in a code that I found on a website that allows you to play Japanese games on an American system. Excuse me. Okay, so we've connected Sonic Spinball from Japan into the Game Genie, and we've entered this code, EAATBL1T.
Right.
And according to the source that I found online, this code works on any Japanese game that utilizes the standard Sega lockout code.
Right, the standard one, not like if there's a different one.
Yeah,
right.
There are a number of games that don't use the normal, what's it called? There's a normal protocol for the system to communicate with the game to understand what region it's from.
Right.
This code works for any of the games that use that standard protocol. Some other Japanese games will have their own codes that people have written to be able to play them on an American system. And we can, again, provide a link for that.
Yep.
But you'll see, now that I've put this code in, and I hit start.
And this game didn't work previously. Now it works. So it boots up.
Fine.
Yep.
If I turn the switch off now, nothing's going to happen because once the game has loaded, it's already, determined that it's okay to read the information that's on the cartridge.
Right. Basically, the region lockout has been bypassed through the Game Genie. So.
And again, I'll show you real quick. If I just skip all of this and tell it to start, you get the lockout
when you get the error.
message.
Yep.
Now, the next thing, just in case you might want to play a European game. Again, the European cartridges are the same shape as the American cartridges. I'm going to pull out Sonic 3D Blast or Sonic 3D Flicky's Island if you're from the UK. And if I put that into the Genesis, not only does it fit, it is the exact same circuit board inside that game for the American version and the European. It will play at 60 hertz. It doesn't stutter or anything. The game was designed to run at 60 hertz, even though I think Traveler's Tales is a European company.
I believe so, yeah. I mean, I've read somewhere that any game, well, this is probably not true, but I've heard that any game beyond a certain year may have difficulty or may not work at all in a Genesis. I heard the magic number is 1993.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Notice here that even though it said Sonic 3D Flicky's Island, it says Sonic 3D Blast. The code of the game is able to recognize what region the system is and change the title for that region.
Interesting.
They put that information into the game so that you could just use it anywhere, basically. As far as a year, a cutoff for games, I don't know about that.
I've heard 1993 is the cutoff, but Ball Jacks, which we just showcased a little earlier, did come out, I believe, in 93 or right around that time. So either it was developed and released around 93.
Yeah, 93.
Yeah, it was 93. So I believe that only a certain amount of games after a certain point, like maybe like December of 93 or something like that, would not work in the Genesis, in an NTSC Genesis, if they are a different region. So I believe that's the case.
So now I have the European Sonic 3. This is the box for the European, and there's the American one. The European Sonic 3, although it doesn't have physical lockout, it also has region lockout when you put it in American system. A lot of PAL games may have this. You see right here it says,
developed for use only with PAL and French CCAM Mega Drive systems.
CCAM is a variant of the PAL television signal. I think it was used in like France. That's why it says French.
Right.
And a couple other areas. But essentially, since it still runs at 50 hertz, they're almost interchangeable. I don't know if there was a difference in the actual video hardware of the European Mega Drives.
Right.
But when you plug it in here, it won't load. There are codes that you can use to get it to play, again, with the Game Genie. But the issue is, the reason a lot of PAL games are locked out is because the hardware is different. It runs at that 50 hertz.
Right.
Although some European games, much like some Japanese games, will just play blindly and not have any issues. If you get one like Sonic 3, for example, that has region lockout, they've done it for a specific reason. If the game has a save file, if it's got a chip in there to save the data, that might not operate at 60 hertz. So it might have a lockout as a safety prevention so that you don't damage the game. Most games, like take Sonic the Hedgehog for example, they were designed to run on a 60 hertz system. PAL gamers, when they got Sonic 1, Sonic 2, etc., those games physically, when you're playing them, they move slower than the American version.
Because it's in 50 hertz.
Yes.
Right.
Some European Genesis or European Mega Drive games were optimized so that even though the system is running slower, the gameplay or the video will be correct for the PAL system. Because a lot of PAL games, or a lot of Mega Drive games in PAL regions are squished because the PAL signal has higher resolution than NTSC. Anyway, there are ways to get around the region locks on European games as well. Very much with the Game Genie, you can just stick it in and put in a code. You want to read that second code off to me on that list there? So I put in that code from this list here, and it should load. And it may not. So it's confused.
Well, for use only with systems.
So this is what I mean by I think some European games are designed only to work on a 50 hertz console. And Sonic 3 may be one of those. Even if the game is 98% the same, there's something about that cartridge that is waiting for a 50 hertz, region system to run it.
Right. I mean, we could talk about this all day.
Yes.
But we wanted to give you guys just like a little bit of background and information regarding the regions and everything, just so you're aware that sometimes just doing a hardware modification on the actual like outer shell of the system doesn't necessarily mean you can now play literally every game that's ever come out.
And the same goes with when we did your SNES.
Super Nintendo,
there are some Japanese Super NES games that also are hard-coded out, so you would need some sort of converter that would trick the system into thinking that it's a local game, or
like a Game Genie code or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if there was one.
I'm not sure, yeah.
But either way, so if you are afraid of even cutting into your machine, you don't want to cut your thumb, Game Genie is a very simple solution.
Yep.
Or if you're in Europe and you have access to a Pro Action Replay, or you've imported a Pro Action Replay, you can also use that. We'll put a couple links to that information as well into the description.
Yes.
But we wanted to cap things off with an even easier solution, just so that we try to cover as many bases as possible.
Right, that's right. So that's going to do it for us. So again, I want to thank Eric for stopping by. He's kind of the Sega Genesis, or Sega just in general, master that knows tons of information. So I figured there's nobody better to kind of give us some details on how to modify the outer shell of the system. So
not just that, you also have to give me some props for finally making you get a Genesis. I tried to twist his arm for so many years.
Well, that was back in the day. I mean,
yeah,
you
were Super Nintendo guy.
I was a Nintendo all the way, but so that's it. So I want to thank you guys for watching. Check out the other Noob Repair episodes featuring Eric. Well, have a description right after this video. And also, if you didn't watch the first episode where we talked about the 32X, the Nomad, and the Sega Genesis Model 3, check that out again. That's the previous video, so you can kind of get a little bit more information on those systems.
So we'll see you next time with whatever we come up with.
Bye! Hey guys, thanks so much for sticking with the entire episode for all 3 parts. If you haven't watched the first 2, go and check them out. You may learn a little bit of information about hardware shell region mods for the Sega Genesis 1, Sega Genesis Model 2, the Model 3, which technically doesn't require any modification, and the 32X. And also, we did a Super Nintendo one as well. You could check that out down below. Thanks so much for watching Noob Repair.